We're being deceived. We're all being deceived. Every day, every time you get on the internet, every time you go on YouTube looking for advice, I'm here to tell you that chances are, greater than not, that you're being deceived. Now, why are we being deceived? Well, tell you what we tend to do when we go online looking for advice is we overestimate the expertise of certain people because they are good at one thing, and then they're proclaiming to expound on the benefits and give you advice on another thing. So for example, a person is a billionaire. Well, because they're a billionaire, you assume that they must be good at doing certain things. So you take their advice on things that are not related to making money. The only thing you should really be taking advice on from a billionaire is how to make money. That's what they're good at. That's what they have shown expertise in. Should you be looking at them and taking advice on relationship issues, on family issues? No, not at all, because they haven't shown that they are experts in that field. We tend to conflate excellence and brilliance in one thing with excellence and brilliance in a whole range of other things. For example, I go online all the time and I see these clickbait ads. And the clickbait ads say something ridiculous like, world's top heart doctor gives you trick for completely emptying your bowels every morning. Okay, why would I take, number one, clickbait medical advice? Number two, dig in a little bit deeper. World's top heart doctor tells you something about your gastrointestinal health. They're only tangentially related, but we're conflating the fact that this person is an expert in one medical field with this person possibly being an expert in all medical fields, right? So that's like saying if you have a question about your car, you click on an ad that says world's Formula One top aerodynamicist tells you the best snow tires to buy this winter. Okay, these things are tangentially related. They're both about cars, but they don't really have anything to do with one another. If you wanted to say world's top Formula One tire expert tells you which snow tires to buy this winter, that's getting a little bit closer. But because a person is good at one thing does not automatically make them good at another thing. This is a classic example of what's called a logical fallacy. What's a logical fallacy? A logical fallacy is reasoning that is incorrect, that leads you to make erroneous decisions based upon assumptions. There are dozens and dozens of logical fallacies. The one you might be familiar with is one called the ad hominem fallacy. Ad hominem means the person. So what's an ad hominem argument? An ad hominem argument is saying, well, Bob couldn't possibly know about the politics of our town because Bob wasn't raised here. Okay, so you're making an assumption that Bob can't opine or be an expert on your politics merely because of the fact of something about his person, not about his actual knowledge of politics. Okay, so you're disregarding his expertise in one area because of a perceived inadequacy in another area that has nothing to do with it. There's another logical fallacy called the bandwagon fallacy. The bandwagon fallacy says because something is popular, it must be true. So, should I wait until the last minute to finish my term paper? Well, everyone does it, so that must mean it's a fair path to follow. Your reasoning that it's okay to wait for one thing or to do one thing, to act a certain way, is predicated on something that's actually unrelated to it. That's called the bandwagon fallacy. Now, we talked earlier about giving people perceived expertise because they are good at one thing, and we're assuming they're good at other things because of that. That's called the ad verecundium fallacy. And that means because you are an authority in one thing, you are perceived to be an authority in another thing. The classic one is, we should eat carrots because my mom says they're healthy. Okay, that may be a truthful statement, but is your mom a dietitian? Is she a nutritionist? No, she's just a figure of authority who's telling you to do one thing, and so you do it. You're assuming because she is an authority, because she's your mom, she's an expert on diet, okay? So that's a logical fallacy. You assume because a billionaire is successful in business, they must know things about getting married and being a family person. That's 100% not true. You should not make that logical fallacy jump. I was listening to a podcast the other day, a very well-known podcast with two pretty well-known people. One of them is a very successful business person. And That person has a business model that's kind of unique, and they were on the show to talk about that. And they talked about that business model for maybe 15, 20 minutes. For the remainder of that 2 hour podcast, this business person opined about family and children and marriages and relationships. And I sat there listening to it and thinking, I don't want you to tell me about raising children. Number one, you don't even have any children. I don't want you to tell me about marriage and relationships because number two, I think you're on multiple marriages. So because you are really good at this business model that you've constructed, the unthinking person is going to say, wow, this wise person must know a lot about all the other facets of life that they're talking about. And I'm telling you, to resist that temptation to follow the ad verecundium logical fallacy that says because you are an expert in one area, you are therefore an expert in all areas. Be very critical in your reasoning. Be very critical in the things that you listen to and take into you and adopt, because if you're using a logical fallacy to get from point A to point B is not going to be the correct destination. You will have deviated, followed this logical error in thinking, and arrived at the wrong point. So make sure when you're listening to an expert, you say, what is this person really an expert in? And is the advice that they're giving me expertise on the thing that they're good at? Me, for example, I'm giving you expert advice on business and relationships inside organizations. That's because I've spent 30 years focusing on that. I've worked from big businesses to small businesses. I've made money, I've lost money, I've created businesses, I've exited businesses. I've done these things, and so I can tell you from a position of success and failure, the things that you can keep in mind to make your path easier, and you can learn from my mistakes and you can learn from my successes. If I start to tell you about relationships and marriage, you should not listen to that. I'm divorced, so don't listen to me about that. I do have kids, so if you want to talk and listen about raising kids and how that works as a family, you might be interested in what I have to say and you might not be. That's up for you to decide. Is the person giving me advice a true expert, and is what they have to say useful to me and my path and my journey? That's it for today. Be well, do good things, and I'll talk to you next time.